You guys, I am so excited to have my next guest on, and this has just been uh, I mean, I really feel lucky to be able to talk to the people I am able to talk with now. And a lot of that's because of you. Podcast listeners are a special, you guys are just really special. The way you support, the way you go and try out new podcasts, the way you go. I mean, it's just a really neat thing to watch. And I want to really highly recommend, and I've been doing this now for a couple of weeks because I was just on her podcast, but there's a podcast called Celebrity Book Club that actually dissects in a humorous way, but also there's like really meaningful moments, usually female memoirs. The only two males I believe are like Burt Reynolds and Danny Pellegrino, which I need to talk about while we get into this. But what I was impressed by when I was just kind of researching our guest was just that like the podcast is like, I love it. It's huge. I mean, I don't think it's ever going to not be there if she wants to keep doing it. But what an incredible career she has had up to this point as a writer, as a performer. I mean, we're talking Second City, we're talking Tisch School of the Arts. I mean, like, it just really, it made me feel so bad about myself where I was like, you just have the podcast, Ryan. This person has 7 other things going and you got the podcast. But anyways, I need to know all about her career, all about her, all about books, all about pop culture. Chelsea Devantez, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Okay, 2 things. First, I just want to say podcast audiences, I agree, are so special, but yours in particular, very, very special, cool people. You can always tell if a certain podcast attracts a good kind of awesome person. And I've been hearing from some of your fans in my DMs and in our podcast reviews, and they're so cool, smart, and nice. They're the opposite of Bachelor Nation. Those fans are rabid. That's a rabid folk. And so just huge
really
shout out to your listeners.
Fandom is really amazing, like, because you either attract like people that are willing to give things a shot, to think things through, to actually be objective about things, and then you have like Bachelor Nation or 90 Day Fiance, or even, I mean, sometimes you have a Bravo section of the audience that is just like, no, I will take you down, you know. Yeah. And you're like, you're talking to a podcast right now.
Yeah. Oh, wild. Yeah. I mean, listen, you put out pure toxic content as The Bachelor has done. You know, it's kind of what you get. They're trying to get a little better these days, and the audience is like, absolutely not. But listen, I'm part of Bachelor Nation myself, unfortunately. So
wait, but I find it so like we really, really are like committing to calling ourselves Bachelor Nation. Like, I watch The Bachelor, but like, do I have to pass a test to be Bachelor Nation? Like, everybody's like, no, I'm Bachelor Nation. Like, it's an actual thing that you vote on. And I like, if it goes much further, I want there to be an island where we make Bachelor Nation. Like, we just send it over. Everybody, Bachelor Nation moves to this island, because it's like, I feel like we're going to start voting on things.
That's actually a genius idea. As they're filming Bachelor in Paradise in Mexico, on across the beach, there's just a bunch of fans ruining each other's lives and sleeping together and
Jeff
voting
Probst
on the
from
other
Survivor.
contestants.
Yeah, Jeff Probst from Survivor.
Hello, we've got a Survivor meets Bachelor in Paradise, but with fans.
So the podcast is just excellent, and I was so honored to be a part of it. And I told you on this, and I told all my listeners, and they know over the last couple of years, I used to be obsessed with reading. Like, I really was, as a kid, as a nerd kid before like the internet, I was obsessed with libraries. I would just sit and read to the point where I would get made fun. You know, like, even my dad was making fun of me. Like, I loved a book. Like, and I would just stay up all night reading. The summer was amazing because I didn't have a bedtime, or I at least could have a little nightlight that I could read. What was that like for you? Like, what got you into books, and was it from a very young age?
Yes, absolutely. I loved books. I was a gifted reader in my class. I was like that annoying kindergartner. Yes, was like, everyone gather around, I'm gonna read a book. So I always loved reading, and books really very genuinely saved my life. Like, when you're it's funny, there's this Oprah quote. I also read Oprah magazine religiously because they had it at the library. She had this quote that said, like, the cure to insecurity is education, and anything you're insecure about, if you got educated enough about it, it could cure your insecurity. And I was just so insecure that I was like, well, I'm going to read every fucking book in the world then. And maybe I'll heal myself. And so I loved reading all kinds of books. Like, as a kid, historical fiction, all of the Sweet Valley High hits, all that pop culture stuff. And then then I got into a hardcore self-help phase because I needed help. You know what I mean? I was like, well, these books say we help you out. And But they really didn't I don't know what I was doing reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but I absolutely was as a child. And then
Iron John, yeah.
Iron John. Finally, at a yard sale, I bought Delta Burke's half style, half memoir book and found the world of celebrity memoirs. And they've just truly been, celebrity women have been holding my hands through their books throughout my life. And people always think of them as trash junk, which they are in the best way, but they're also the most incredible self-help books you will ever read in your whole life. And specifically the female ones, because they open up about their lives. And the dude ones are Matthew McConaughey, writing a random poem about his dick.
I've talked about Green Lights, Matthew McConaughey's autobiography on the show before. And by the way, I highly recommend the audiobook. Do not, because the audiobook, he gets the lilt in there, but it was hysterical. Matthew is obviously going to be running for office one day, but it was just, he was after what was the big movie, the John Grisham movie he got to be in, after a time to kill.
Sandra Bullock.
Yeah, he goes, after a time to kill, I had the world by the balls. So I had to get out. I had to get out of Hollywood, and I went to Zimbabwe by myself. I had a pocket full of ecstasy, and I just was in the wood. I was just okay. Holy God, this guy. But it was one of my funniest listens of the year last year, and I know it was meant to be serious. But we did the Selma Blair book, and it was really there was really kind of intense, beautiful passages or honesty about her life and her mental health, which I know you take seriously as well as I do.
Yeah.
Do you think women celebrities, you just said you really do learn these from women. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think for a good reason and a bad reason. For the bad reason, we've commodified female vulnerability kind of across the board. You can't, not to go back to the 2016 election, but it's Hillary was all, we're talking about what's her suit that she's wearing? How did she feel about Bill? How did she express herself? All these things she kind of has to prove in order to be likable that, our male candidates don't have to. And so in female celebrity memoirs, that is just fully on display. If they don't open up their dramas, their trials, their tears, if they don't bleed out, that book is not going to sell. And so, whereas Matthew McConaughey is he had great sales and he shared, mostly nothing. And so I think the women have to do it. And then also, I personally want to believe that we want to do it because there's so many of the books that are I just need to pass this on to somebody. Gabrielle Union was listen, if you're going to cheat, there's some actual ways to do it. And I just need to help. I need to help a girl out. And she just teaches you how to cheat.
Wait, Gabrielle Union teaches you how to cheat?
Yes, actually, let me pass this on for any cheaters out there.
Guys, we had a huge cheating. We had a lot of cheaters out there in the audience. So we got to listen to this.
You got to listen. Well, and I'll say the advice, and then there's a perfect example for this. She said, if you're going to cheat, you have to cheat with someone who has more to lose than you do. So,
oh, that is good.
Yes. And that way, you're keeping your secrets a crime, which at the same time I was reading her book, Will and Jada Smith were having their Red Table Talk where she had cheated with this 24-year-old rapper who had no family.
August Alsina.
Yeah, exactly.
The entanglement. Yeah.
Exactly. No family, no legacy on the line. It only benefited him to be me and Jada have been going hard, He had nothing to lose. And so, and then outed the fact that Jada and Will have been likely cheating on each other their whole lives. And so I was oh yeah, that is great advice, Gabrielle Union. And she said it because she used to cheat on her husband, her first husband.
Well, now she's with Dwayne Wade and they have a beautiful family.
Beautiful.
And I'm guessing, I don't know. Do we consider them equal? Do we consider Dwayne more? Would she ever consider cheating, or did she think she married somebody she couldn't cheat on? Because I think they're kind of equal in a lot of ways.
Oh yeah. I think she still experiences a lot of inequality in that relationship because the NBA fandom is just so intense. But for me, I might not even recognize Dwayne, but Gabrielle Union, I'd bow down and become a worshiper.
The only sports people I've known throughout the years are ones that have dated celebrities. Jessica Simpson dated Tony Romo, and I was okay, now I know who Tony Romo is. I know a lot of the basketball players because of the Kardashians, but there's I know Dwayne Wade through Gabrielle Union, and I know through their trans child, which I was wow, this is amazing. But other than that, so What made you decide then to do a podcast? Like, I got to talk about this. I got to talk about this with other people.
So I was, so I'm a comedian, and as we know, by law, you have a podcast, and I had gotten out of it. I was like, look at me, I'm a comedian without a podcast. Somehow I did it. And I was in a hot tub on a girls' trip on Valentine's
Most
Day.
podcasts are started in a hot tub. That's a scientific
That
fact.
feels like science, because that's where I was. And I was, just 10 Spindrift and vodkas to the wind. And I had brought Jessica Simpson's memoir on the
Open
trip.
book.
Yeah. And I had pre-ordered it. So it's like, I got it, and probably the day it arrived, and went and read it. And I was so drunk that I started recapping it on my Instagram, because I was like, y'all got to read this. Like, you don't even know how good this one is. And so I'm posting little quotes from the pages and talking about it, and people went nuts for it. And I previously had sort of felt like no one respects the book genre, female celebrity memoirs. It was sort of my secret, because I was Jon Stewart's head writer. I'm in political late night comedy for a long time. It was like,
Jordan Klepper. I love Jordan Klepper. You wrote on his show. I mean, amazing.
Yeah. So, but because they've done this to female literature and female stories and called it, chick lit and trash lit, I had just sort of kept it to myself. And so, because of culture. And so, thankfully, I was drunk enough to share it, and then people responded. Half of them, I love memoirs too, like, what's in this book? And the other half were like, I had no idea these books had any substance in them. And so then I was like, well, then if you like that book, you gotta read my other favorites. And so I started recapping the books on my Instagram, and it turned into a podcast like 2 days later. Like 2 days later, they're like, you got to do a podcast. And at first I was like, no.
What? But you then did it and realized how that actually it is a powerful, like, you made it. See, what I love about yours is that you're right, though. Every comedian now has a podcast. They're just giving it that, and you can tell that. I think a good half of them don't want to be doing it.
Completely agree. They say it really, on the podcast.
Yeah, there's not really a form. There's not really that. But through your form, through these books, it kind of elevates it to where I don't even talk about you, and I don't even talk about you as a comedian. You're You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't even, like, I know you are, and I know you have all of this rich background of work, but like, I'm there for that ride. Then I'm there for that journey, because you're teaching me something, you're inspiring me or others to do something. And then it kind of elevates past what those typical comedian podcasts that usually only last like a year do,
Yeah. Well, thank you. And, really, I very seriously misjudged podcasts, because I had really only known comedian podcasts, because that's my world, where they would just kind of like ramble on a mic for an hour, and that's my day job. Do you know what I mean? Like, and so I was like, I don't need more of that. And I hadn't really opened my eyes to what an incredible world this is. And to be honest, my podcast is probably the least comedic thing I do in my life, because the books mean so goddamn much to me. Can I swear on this? I think I've sworn like 20.
Yeah. We just got taken off the air. No, please.
Yeah.
Swear it up. Yeah.
Okay. The books mean so much to me. And another reason I didn't want to have podcasts is because I had a really hard time sharing personal details about my life. So I totally find time like doing comedy, creating content, but like in terms of talking about my life, I've had some stuff happen, and I never wanted to talk about it, because that's what hard stuff does to you. And when I got,
you actually even shared, you have these like mini stories. You had one 2 episodes ago, but then even one before that, which you actually really shared something. But I mean, you kind of you seem like you're getting better at it. It is so crazy. My podcast, Therapy and Meds, turned my whole life around. And it's so weird that podcast is next to therapy and meds, but it really is. Through reading the books, these women open up their lives so deeply and intensely. And almost in every book, there'll be a paragraph that's like, if you want to heal, own your story, share your story. Lonnie Anderson, who's an actress from the 80s and 90s, was like, even if you married to Burt Reynolds.
Yeah. And she was like, write it, just write it on a one piece of paper and put it in a drawer, but write and look at your story, and you'll change your life. And so I'm reading that over and over again. Then I'm reading books like Demi Moore finds out that her dad is not her real dad when she's a teenager. That happened to me. Tina Turner goes through a horribly domestic violence relationship, a very, very famous one, but there was other stuff in the book I didn't know about that mirrored some stuff that I had gone through. And so I was just starting to feel like less alone. People were DMing me the way they related to the books. I started to feel like maybe I wasn't as ugly of a person inside and my life in the past as I thought. And then after a year of doing it, I shared, the worst story of my life on a podcast, and I'm just a different person. It's like that moment in a superhero movie, where like the sheen comes over their eyes and they realize like, oh, I can shoot goo out of my hands. And and you're
I totally, it's like the Matrix. It's like when you can start seeing like, in that scene in the Matrix, that you can start seeing the code, like you're like, oh, now I can see past this BS exterior and I'm seeing what's really actually there.
Yeah. And I definitely wouldn't have, I was in trauma therapy for a long time. So I'd really already on my own been working through trauma therapy, and a lot of trauma work is about looking at your own story and owning that trauma and working through shame. And so I won't discredit those 5 years, but sort of
I love that you're like, no to that. Yes to women celebrity autobiographies. That's the real trauma therapy.
It's literally like I was in, like, the therapy built the cake and the podcast was just me serving it.
Yeah.
But you do have to serve the cake.
The podcast candles? What is the podcast?
What's the metaphor here?
No, like this. That's what I don't have. I started all of it, but I had like a real like love of comedy just ever since I was a little kid, and that kind of made me feel less alone. Was laughing with somebody, or even listening to somebody that could make me laugh. Like that made me. And then when you do this podcast and you start being honest and stuff, it really is this whole other animal of like, oh, guess what? Sharing is making me feel less alone. Like, this podcast is making me feel less alone. And it's comedic, yes, but not, like I always just thought like I need hard jokes that are like silly. I need the 30 Rock like flip, which by the way, you were one of the writers on Girls 5 Eva,
that's right,
Faye show on Peacock, which I loved over the pandemic, and they just had a second season.
Thank you, but so good.
Really, I mean, like
I love that. It's so dumb because I wrote on it, but I love that show as an audience member. The best part about not being on season 2, because I was on a different show, is that I got to just enjoy it. It's a great show.
But like that first season, I was like, oh, I miss just silly. I mean, like,
jokes.
And 30 Rock used to really kind of do that really well. And then I was like, oh, this is so nice to have this kind of comedy back, or that kind of style. Okay, so you do talk about mental health, like you just said, a lot. And I'm somebody that is on, I'm on SRIs. I do therapy. I have to. And I still struggle with this on a weekly basis, and as I'm sure you do, but it's like I sometimes get frustrated that it's like, okay, I have to do 20 things every day just to be status quo. I have to do 20 things. Like I have to take my pills, I have to make sure I exercise, I have to eat right, I have to do this, I have to do that. And as you get older, that list keeps going on and on and on. Yeah. I can't. And then you were talking about like makeup, which I know really enjoy makeup. And I was like, girls even then have that added bonus of like, now I have to put on makeup, I have to put on clothes. Like I'll just go under a weighted blanket. I don't know really what the point of that was. I just said like, I love that you actually talk about mental health.
And well, it's the greatest part about sharing is that it gives other people the permission to share. And when a whole community of people shares, like stuff really does start to move, and like it's just like such a weird, magical thing to be happening in such a genre, unexpected genre. And like, it also sucks too. It's like that sharing that changed my life for sure. But it's the worst part is that it's not done. Like I have so much more mental health work to do, and I still go through really dark periods, and I still get, pretty intense attacks sometimes. It's just that it's better. And on my dark days, my therapist will kind of remind me of like, but remember where we were when you first came in. And I can definitely like scientifically see giant leaps forward. So even when things are still really bad, I'm like, oh, I'm on the track towards them not being bad one day. Yeah. I just fucking wish I was done.
I mean, that's it. Yeah. Like I always you don't graduate ever from anything. I think that's like a complete fallacy in this world, is that you're not like, I always thought like, even with acting, when I would study or teach acting, it was like, okay, once you get on a show, you never have to go to class again because you're an actor. Like you did it. You know how to act. And then realizing like, no, you've got to study your entire life. You've got to work that muscle your entire life. And nothing it's unfortunate to realize you can't coast on anything in this world if you want something good to happen, you know?
Yeah.
Unless
absolutely.
you're the Kardashians at this point.
Oh my God, truly. I mean, yeah, very, very good point. Yeah, I wish we could just be like, listen, I put 5 years of therapy and that's a lot. I think I should be healed.
Yeah, whatever higher power's up there. Come on, man. I did the work. Yeah.
I did the work.
You were talking about Jessica Simpson's book being the first one. And it was another one I listened to the audiobook of, and I, not even like the biggest Jessica Simpson fan, but every one of my like they were all, I wanted to be a part of it. And I was expecting fluff. And then I get in there, like she's speaking about John Mayer. Like John Mayer seemed like a real dick for all those ladies out there. Like, I know you guys still obsess about John Mayer, and I think he's super funny and obviously a good musician. But like the stories in there about John of just keeping her on the line, keeping her on the hook. Like he made friends with her parents and would be hanging out with her parents away from Jessica.
Yeah. Well, you know, my favorite part of that episode is my guest, who's also my best friend, Ashley Nicole Black. You guys might know her.
Yeah, totally.
So she had told me this advice in life. And then when we were reading the Jessica Simpson book, she pointed it out, and I think it's a little bit world changing, which is why I love talking about these books. So John Mayer would always ruin Jessica's life before the biggest moments in her career. So right before she's supposed to sing in front of the president and Dolly Parton.
Oh yeah, for the awards. Yeah.
That's when he breaks up with her. That's when he stops responding to her phone calls. Like right before she has to go on, and then she's so messed up from it that she walks off stage. She doesn't even finish singing the song on what's supposed to be this huge moment of her career. And the advice Ashley gave was something she was given in grad school, which they said, grad school is really hard. You're going to have a lot of term papers and big events and things to turn in. There will be one person in your life who tries to sabotage you the night before every big part of this career choice. And they were like, what? Really? And they're like, there'll always be one. Look for them. They're going to act like they love you, but they're always going to start a fight right when it would be worse for you. And that is a person who doesn't want you to succeed and is hurt by your success and is insecure. And if you look around in your life and you start to know, you'll start to find your person, and you can take John Mayer out of your life, because it took Jessica Simpson 9 times to break up with him.
Yeah, and then Mayer was doing interviews in Playboy magazine. She's sexual napalm. Like, you know, like we all like, it's fun. It's not fun to get older, but one of the kind of cool things about getting older is that you now have a history of pop culture where you're like, okay, John's riding high right now again. But, you know, you think about all the decades past of like watching this guy come up, you know, the interviews he's done in the past, the Jessica Simpson book comes out. It's really interesting to see now the breadth of a celebrity's career, whether it be the Kardashians, you know, and where they started from selling tummy tea to now their billion-dollar empire selling skincare that they copped from some other poor ladies, you know.
What kills me about John Mayer, though, is that, okay, so Jessica Simpson wrote about how extremely manipulative and awful he was to her. 10 years prior to that, Ricki Lake wrote the same thing about John Mayer in her book. These women have identical paragraphs in their book.
Ricki Lake was with John Mayer?
Yes, for one sweet night until she told him about it, and then he just destroyed her. And Ricki Lake has a paragraph in her book where she's like, so I was showing my friend my text message, like to see, like, is it smart enough and good enough for John? Does it explain to him that, like, I'm a new hot person because I just lost weight and I don't know how to be hot and I'm just so sorry. And he's writing back,
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry, John, that I don't know how to get hot. That I'm hot, but I don't know how to use it yet.
I don't know how to be a hot girl with you. I messed up and told someone. He's responding like, don't worry about it. I didn't know that, you know, you were new to being hot. Meanwhile, Jessica's book, she's like, I'm showing my friends my text messages. Like, are they good enough for John? Are they smart enough for John? Promising to be a better person. It's like, oh, that's a certain type of man who does that to you. Then Taylor Swift is telling on him. Then in that sexual napalm interview, he's using the N-word. He's saying he doesn't find Black women attractive. And how has he not had to atone for these crimes?
And in his head, he thinks he's going to be awarded for honesty. Like, hey, I'm an artist. I was being honest. Like, and he did. Like, he suffered for a couple of years, but he worked his way back in. And people do forget. People do
Oh,
forget.
totally. And some people get passes. John Mayer's been given a pass. Tom Cruise. Listen, even Justin Timberlake had to apologize for nip slip, but some people get out of it.
Justin Timberlake, by the way, Justin Timberlake had learned something from Janet that immediately, when there was just a little wind blowing about Britney Spears, which you talked about a couple episodes ago, her eventual autobiography is going to be insane. Like, just, I'm
worried about it. I'm worried about it. Like, the way she's writing is someone who has not even really begun to accept the trauma she's been through. I mean, the way she's writing is really intense. Like, her Instagram captions are telling a story of someone who hasn't even really accepted what's happened, because that's the first step of, and the book is going to be coming out at this first stage. And I just wanted to have support.
It's going to be interesting. And I wanted to ask this of you too about ghostwriters and your opinion on ghostwriters, because a lot of celebrities in general use ghostwriters, and especially with the Bravo audience. Like, these things now are coming off the presses. Like, I feel like there's one every month with a Bravo celebrity that I don't even know. And I hate to be negative, but like, sometimes I'm like, you haven't even earned a book yet. You haven't even earned, you haven't earned what 3 seasons of Southern Charm, and you're gonna like tell me how to live my life about sewing pillows. Like, I mean, I don't understand. That part. I just wanted your take on that, because Britney, by the way, has had one of the most historic careers of all time. But you're right. Like, everybody, those Instagram captions are these kind of lyrical, frantic poems that, you're right, she has not accepted, because how do you accept the impossible was done to you? The impossible was
and assaulted and just hidden in your home for 12 years. Like,
well, you did all that therapy, and she didn't even have the doctors she had access to were through the conservatorship that wanted to keep her a certain way. So she hasn't even had any professionals to be able to work through anything with yet.
And I hope she is. And obviously, listen, I want her book more than anything. Like, her, I've read Jamie Lynn's book and the mom Lynn Spears book, both. I mean, just not even as a fan of Britney, they're both the worst, most pieces of dog shit telling themselves books of all time.
That shocks me. Wow, that's interesting.
Who knew? But I wish the tagline to my podcast could be, not everyone deserves a book. Not everybody needs a book.
That's my whole point, was that, like, even these people that I like watching, I'm like, why would I?
No,
I'm already watching you. There's no part, like, I wonder what makes them tick. Like,
the only one who, the only one so far that I knew of that really earned that is Nene Leakes. She did 1 season of The Housewives, wrote a book that sold 5 copies, and in the book spills the details on everybody. I mean, how they ever came back for a second season when she is
Wait, is that true?
She's just talking I'm aware of so much shit on people. Yeah, it truly sold 2 copies. Like, I don't even think people realize she had a book. But I mean,
is it even out there anymore? Can you get it, or is it like
you can get it used? You can get it used,
okay.
And she's like, Kim's a piece of trash, whoremonger. Here's her every detail about her life. Every cast member she trashes. She gets the goods on everything.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the other thing you can kind of start to see with these celebrity memoirs too. It seems like they give a little dirt. They're like, this is the time I have to give 5 facts about dirt on the show that I worked on, so it'll keep you interested. Now, here's why I had a child. Like, it's always seems very patterned. The Britney Spears, though, back to that, is just that I think even if they gave her a ghostwriter, which I'm sure they're trying to do, you're gonna, like, just from her personal writing on those Instagram captions, you're gonna know immediately, oh, this is not Britney writing this.
Yeah. And you know what? I've spoken to a great ghostwriter, Hillary Lifton, who's done a ton of celebrity memoirs. She came on our podcast and she talked about how you're half therapist, half writer, because you really are wading through someone's story with them and getting perspective on it, a lot like therapy. And I just hope she has an actual therapist, and I hope she has a ghostwriter who can really help her tell her story in a way she's proud of. But I also think she's writing with vengeance, my favorite type of book. I mean, she is writing to just put her sister in the dirt, and I am here for it. Her and her mom's books are crimes. I mean, they should be in jail for writing those books.
And the memoirs of, like, family members of celebrities, it's always like, the wind through my hair. Like, it's always like this weird, like, the title's never, it's like, something about strength and courage or something.
The mom's is Through the Storm.
Yes, that's it, Through the Storm.
Yeah. Jamie Lynn truly stole her sister's song lyrics, pretended she didn't. When her book came out, Target had the original title already printed on their little barcodes. And so people could see that because she came out, she was like, "Oh, that was just a temp title that someone else put on my book. I wasn't going to steal my sister's song." And then
those book companies are just fly by night. They're on their own, like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then she chose a book. Actually, now I'm. What was her book title again? It was hold on. It was
like Pieces of Me.
No, it was it was. Okay, hold on. I have to find this. Her book title is Things I Should Have Said, which is just a simile for that title she was going to steal from her sister.
Books I Should Have Wrote.
Yeah. Things I should not have said. We should add an N and a T to that title.
How do you go about choosing the books that you cover? At this point, I am curious if like book companies are trying to get you to cover their celebrities' books. Is it like that, or how do you compile a list of each season what you want to cover?
The first dozen or 24 episodes were just some of my favorites. And so that was easy. And then we started getting contacted of like, will you cover our book? And I did a couple of them, and I actually deleted those episodes because they wanted the author to come on. And it was just like, it was often just someone who wasn't supposed to have a book talking about their book versus someone who was really offering something. And so really, I have this test at the end of the podcast, which I call the Bookdle test. Really dumb play on the Bechdel test, but where we talk about like, did the author share their truth? Was the book entertaining? And did it elevate your life in some way? And if a book passes all three of those, it's always going on the podcast, because again, like if it's a good one, like these books change your whole life. Like Gabrielle Union's first memoir, life-changing. Molly Shannon's memoir, life-changing. To memoirs, life-changing. Delta Burke's. And so
what do you think of Sally Fields?
So Sally Field, her memoir, her episode that we did is one of my favorite episodes of all time, especially because of my guest, who is Danielle on Bitch Sesh. And she really offered something seismic in her book, but she is someone who felt like she was trying to understand her story for the first time when she published it. And if she wrote her book again, I think it would be different. And her story has a lot to do with her mom's husband, her stepdad, sexually abused her entire life. And she doesn't even tell her mom about it till her mom is like an old woman, like right before she dies. And she just has to get it out.
And didn't the mom like go like, I thought so, or something like that?
No, the mom says, I don't believe you. You're a liar. And then the next morning comes back and is like, I'm sorry. I believe you and tell me everything. But at that point, Sally doesn't need to tell her mom everything, because just having her be aware that this happened, because she was abused by the stepdad, but there's a second abuse when your mom is keeping this violent, abusive person like in your household. So there's like, abuse there. And then Sally talks about dating Burt Reynolds, who's a known monster to women from multiple women's books, especially Lonnie Anderson's. And Sally kind of has this love for Burt still. So she kind of can't really tell you what happened because she feels so bad ratting him out. But like in the book, it's sort of like, feels like he physically abused you, didn't allow your children to be around. She would like cook him steak in the morning and carry it around to set all day so she could bring it to him for dinner, then go back to her kids who weren't allowed at his house. But she's like, it's written a little vaguely, and it was really, really great. But the book wasn't at the point that maybe Gabrielle Union's was for me.
Yeah. You were really riding hard for Gabrielle Union's book. I feel like you're in the pocket of Big Gabrielle right now.
I really am. Well, I really try. Actually, when I first read that book, I bought 13 copies of it and gave it out as gifts to every woman I knew.
Wow.
Yeah. And so some of them are just, there's others that are really, Mariah Carey's is fantastic. Jane Fonda's, it's 500 pages, but my God, is it good? It's the length
Jane
of the
Fonda's got
Bible,
one
but
of the biggest stories. I mean, but what a life that Jane
oh
Fonda,
yeah.
like people don't even realize.
Oh yeah, and Jane wrote hers alone. Jane had no ghostwriter.
I can totally see that. I know you've got to be writing your own book, and you have so many stories to be telling. And I was listening to the one about the magician that thought he had an STD, which is great. It turns out it was just an age spot. I don't want to give that away. You should listen to it yourself. But like, is this one of those things that you keep all of these stories in your back pocket because you know this is going to be coming for you one day? You will be putting out your own book.
Well, yeah, I'm putting out my own book fall 2023. The manuscript is due in 3 months. HarperCollins bought it, which is so great.
Wait, just stop. You ever in your wild as a kid, like I knew what HarperCollins was as a kid. Can you effing believe that? Like that to me is like like that's not some fly by night. That's huge.
No, it's I always wanted to have my own book and dreamt that one day I would, but that felt like a more impossible dream than becoming a television writer. Like I just, there was no world in which I thought I would get to have a book. And if I did, maybe it would be at the end of my life, because I'm also very into memoirs. And so I want to tell some stories from my life. And I just didn't think that was I had it on my vision board as like a one day. And the podcast actually is people kept writing to me and being like, you should have a book, you should have a book. And I was like, that's so nice, but whatever. And then an agent wrote to me and I was like, well, what are we talking about over here? What are we talking about? And at first I was like, no, I can't tell stories about my own life. I'll pick my favorite quotes from celebrity books. I'll do a coffee table book. And luckily my agent, who I ended up signing with, was like, write a memoir. You're a comedy writer. You love memoirs, write your comedy memoir. And I said, can I? And he was like, I don't know. Can you? You're going to have to write out a sample. And if it's good enough, you'll have a book. And if it's not, you won't. And so, plus,
what a great agent. Yeah.
But it was actually pretty heartening. Good. I was like, yeah, let's see. Do I deserve a book or not? This is something I judge people on all the time. If I don't, I certainly don't want to put one out there. And so then I got really, really lucky. Publishing companies have imprints at them. And this imprint called Hanover Imprint, and the editor, Grace Towery, read it and like got it. And their whole company had already been listening to the podcast. And they were like, do this. And I was like, I'd love to. And I sold a book, and I was living in New York City for my last job. And I was like, I'm Carrie fucking Bradshaw. Like I'm like skipping down the streets and like New York is magical. Like I was crying. I mean, I think it's like the biggest thing that's ever happened to me of all the things that have happened.
I love that you thought TV writing was definitely more obtainable than ever writing a book. Like to me, like that's the other, but I think TV writing is like, holy moly. And you just signed a deal with 20th Century Fox, which I know there's a pilot, right? Is that about to go in production or? Yeah,
so I develop my own TV shows for them, and then they have to go through processes of going to network, and then they have to go through processes to going there. But I developed something with them a year or two ago, and now I'm entered the next round where I've just given them my new slate of TV shows, and we'll have to see what happens. But for me, TV writing is creating an offering of content and jokes and great stories, which obviously is very hard, but for the book is me. Now you have to like me and my stories and what I have to say. And like, that is what was shocking to me.
Yeah. Is it like, I mean, I think there's this gremlin in a lot of our heads, especially creative types that are like, I know at the end of the day, I'm not enough. Like, I mean, everybody's like, you're enough. And I'm like, no, I'm not enough. Like that's a cute little saying, but no. And then sometimes you realize, like, wait a sec, could it be true? Could I be enough? Would people actually interested? Like this is because this town, like, I mean, and you actually New York on top of it, it really tries to beat you down. It wants to be, it doesn't care. It doesn't,
hopes
all of these
you die.
things.
It's sucking your blood every day.
It's like
Mad Max, where you have like these blood bags, and you're just like a corpse.
Yes. We're needed to keep the sky somewhat breathable in Los Angeles.
Yeah, we are the blood bags.
Yeah, they feed off our dreams. And that's what I said. I used to work in an acting studio, and I was like, you don't understand. It's like you're dealing in people's dreams every day. So that energy coming through an acting studio's door is the most intense energy you're ever going to feel in your life, because
Yeah.
you're dealing with people that they were told they were good in their high school musical, and now their dreams aren't coming true, and they're not Julia Roberts, and they're not this person, and it's like this slow trudge to be an overnight success.
They are Julia Roberts, and no one will give them a chance, and they're just gonna have to pay $1 million in rent and never get the break, even though they know they're Julia Roberts. And you're like,
well, that's why I used to pray for obliviousness. Like, I thought it was one of the strongest tools you could have in performing arts, is just to be oblivious, because
you just wanted to dissociate.
Well, you would see people also that just they weren't talented. They shouldn't be getting auditions. They shouldn't be getting auditions, but they didn't know that. So they kept working, and eventually they got okay.
Yeah.
Like, they kept, like, past the point of, like, when I'd be like, no, I suck, I'm not doing that again. And they would not know that they sucked. So they would keep going and eventually get better, which is like, that's obliviousness.
Yes, you know what, you're right. But I will also say that's on my darkest days, the most inspiring things to me have not been people I respect whose work I love. It has been people I don't respect whose work is terrible. And I've been like, look at that. If you just keep walking, it will happen. So here I am thinking I'm terrible, but so are they. So let's all go forward.
I love it. You're doing actually a live performance at Dynasty Typewriter, I believe, this Sunday. I don't know. Are you going to continue to do those?
This Sunday, 5:00, White Wine Hour. And it's a live show, which is different than the podcast. And we're also doing a live stream of it, which is actually our producer's specialty is creating live streams that are really enjoyable to watch, like the way you would turn on, a good show. And so we're doing a live stream too.
And you're doing all of the Judd's books, right?
Yes. And I'm so.
Did you already plan on this even before the news that unfortunately?
So
wow.
From the beginning, when we started doing live shows, I said, I'm going to save the Judds for a live show because I want each guest to read a book. Ashley Judd's book, Winona Judd's book, Naomi Judd has two. And so we'll all kind of come to court together, each representing a Judd. And so we had booked it. And then Naomi's passing came out. And I thought about actually canceling it, but because, Naomi did some pretty wild things to her daughters, and the most amazing and thing I'm excited to look at in these books is they all say different things. So Naomi will be like, and then Ashley didn't really like music. She loved books, and she would just lock herself in her room because she was a quiet kid. And Ashley would be like, my mom told me I wasn't allowed to join the group. They were getting famous no matter what. I should stay in my room and fuck off and die. And so there's some tough things in that family, but then I sort of realized, like, I love these women. They're one of my favorite stories, and probably the best way to, like, talk about their legacy is to talk about it.
I love that. No, that's actually, and I know you come from a performance background. So do you even have nerves for doing anything like this anymore? Is this just like, yeah, I can't wait for 5:00 on Sunday. Let's rock. Like, what is your take on performing now?
Yeah, I don't have nerves anymore, which is incredible. I wish I could tell myself 12
so it's
years
just
ago
fun.
that
It's
this would
just
happen.
fun for you. You just look forward
no,
to it.
it won't just be fun. I do have, like, if it's going well, yeah, it's just fun. But, like, I still have shows that don't go well. I do stand up. I have shows, especially coming off the pandemic, that I'm like, I have forgotten how to talk to people. They don't go well. Those still make me spiral and wonder what I'm doing and why I'm even trying. Like, I still spiral, but before I get there, I mean, I used to want to puke. My hands would be shaking so badly. I would try alcohol. I would try beta blockers, because I couldn't get over it. Yeah. Couldn't get over it. And then because I was an improviser at Second City, you do 8 shows a week. And then after those 8 shows, you do an hour of improv. So you do an hour-long improv set. And to get to that job, you have to do that on their touring company. And to get to the touring company, I did it on a cruise ship. And to do it on a cruise ship, you perform for free constantly until you're good enough. And so I really, through 1,000 million terrible improv shows, beat my own nerves out of me. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I mean, improv especially. I mean, but yeah, I mean, God, I love that they're like, it's like the Scientology Sea Org with Second City. They're like, we got to put you on a boat for 1 billion years, and then you'll come back trained and ready. But it actually did train you.
Oh, and some people are still out there on the Sea Org doing comedy, on that cruise ship. Only some people get to come off the boat.
Which I remember going to Second City once because I taught it like the Cherub program at Northwestern one summer, and I it was like the year, like it was before Rachel Dratch was on SNL, but I, saw the show, and then the hour of improv afterwards
Yeah.
that you're talking about. I remember seeing her, and it was just one of those things where she would just be, and I would laugh. Like, and I didn't know who she was, and I had no clue. And I just like, she was sitting in this rocking chair. Like I just thought it was like the funniest thing I'd ever seen. And I was like, wow, that's comedy's so great. Like you can just give a look and make somebody completely die,
Yeah. Comedy is a lifesaver. It's just a lifesaver. Like if you're in a bad place, comedy saves your life. If you need to fix something on your own, comedy can save you. Comedy will also be it'll be the best show you've ever seen in your life. It'll also be the worst show you've ever seen in your life. Like the best show I've ever seen my whole life was an improv show. The worst shows I've ever experienced are improv shows.
Oh yeah. I mean, I just really, I was like, I remember like Improv Olympic at like 10 p.m. at night. I like three, you hesitate to invite your friend. I mean, this is when you're like just coming, like just trying to even learn it. And you're going up there with like two of your friends and your ex in the audience, and you like, they're full of shame for you. Oh, no. Oh, yeah. You stop, by the way, you stop inviting after a while. You're like, this is just going to be painful for everybody involved. So, but that's the only way you can get good.
Oh yeah. Also, they didn't allow us to perform unless you had 5 people in the audience. So, sometimes you got to get that X in there because you need a 5th warm body for your bad show.
I remember doing like a 2.5 hour play of Hurly Burly once in LA for 3 people on a Sunday matinee, which is like, you have like, I'm snorting baking powder. I'm like all this shit. And just like, wait, really? Like for the 3 people, like somebody sneezes and I'm like, bless you, like it was just wild. So you have that coming up. Do you have a little bit more time? Because I wanted to talk a little bit about pop culture if I could.
Please.
I love your Instagram. I'm a new follower to your
Thank
Instagram.
You. I love yours.
And you were talking about weddings on the podcast we did. And it really seems like you were not lying. You really like to go to town at weddings.
Yeah.
You like to go crazy. Like it seems like you have the most fun. In fact, I was like, could we hire her out just to go to weddings? Like this,
I would love to. I would love to. Anytime. Anyone, you want to invite me to your wedding? I'll fucking be there. I love weddings. I think they're so it's such a purified form of who you are, whether you want it to be or not. But like anytime you go and see a wedding, like you know who that person is and where they came from, and it's like fascinating to me. It's a love story. There's dancing, there's usually lots of booze. I mean, how about this? If it's a dry wedding or you don't have an open bar, actually don't invite me. But if you have lots of booze, wow, will I be there. And
and the also, fashion, you take the fashion seriously.
Very seriously.
I was like, you guys know I'm not like an Old Navy guy, but like she was like recreating these like flower expensive shoes on her Instagram, and she did it. And was that at a wedding that you wore those?
Yeah. So it was okay. So the other thing too is that I'm engaged. I'm planning a wedding, and so I'm also like, even more interested in weddings than I was before. And for our engagement photos, I found a photo. My aunt sent me a photo of these Dolce and Gabbana birds of paradise shoes that had these big beautiful flowers on them. She was like, you should wear these. And I was like, I would love to. $1,500, which morally I can't get behind it. Like even having $1,500 to throw away, I just don't believe in it.
Like if you ever, like when you get to the point you're multi-millionaire, will you feel like, will you do those? I always wonder about that. When you do have the millions, will you feel more comfortable buying those, or will it still be like, that's ridiculous?
I mean, I already have a level of finances I never thought. I'm a TV writer, right? So it's like, I remember us struggling so hard, and now I'm not. And definitely there's some things where I'm like, I am good. Oh my gosh, we're going to go stay at a nice hotel, or I do want to buy that dress, but I am nowhere near, like, I'm not going to buy a designer bag. Like, that's still horrifying to me. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I have one, and people will be like, oh, look at you. And I'm like, it's a knockoff that someone gifted me. Like, I didn't even go in search of it. But yeah, there's some things that I honestly hope they'll always gross me out, because they're gross. And I hope I never lose myself to thinking it's fucking cool to having a bag that costs $5,000. I just think that's gross.
I always wonder about the mentality.
What will you do?
Yeah. Believe me, I'll get out of this little tiny room that I'm trying to act like is a studio. Like, I mean, I don't know what I would do. I never thought about it. In fact, I famously drive a Toyota Corolla, and I'm like, it drives well. I keeps the overhead low, and like, but I think like I would still want to maybe go to like, it's like a gray. I'd go to a black Toyota Corolla because I just like the color black more. Like, I'm like sincerely a simple, like I want to be able to like buy media and like rent Amazon movies without worrying about like, you know, like just simple things. I want to buy book. I want to continue to buy books and not check out from the library, you know?
Totally. Although we love libraries, but I will say this though, there's some rich person stuff that is like cool. Like I wanted to buy every celebrity perfume and try it. That was a fantasy of mine. I would always go into Walgreens and it's like, oh my God, like, you know, Brittany has a new perfume and I wish I could buy it. It's $30. And so last Christmas I was like, yeah, bitch, like I write on a TV show, I'm buying every celebrity perfume and I'm trying it out. And then I gave it away to my podcast followers. I'll send them like perfumes and stuff. That's so
guys,
cool.
you get gifts. Shit. Go subscribe right now. You get gifts. If
you gotta be hardcore. You gotta be hardcore to get the perfumes, but they are there. You look, there's some on my windowsill. Like those are still to be given away.
Oh, I have Chloe and Lamar's Unbreakable scents. I have Vicky Gunn. It tastes like failure, unfortunately. It smells like Rob Kardashian. Sorry.
It smells like a condom you used on someone else.
And I have Vicky Gunvalson from Real Housewives of Orange County. She has V perfume.
Yeah.
And I found, you always find these things at Ross.
Yes, always at Ross.
Like Ross is a great celebrity, like on the, you know, if it doesn't sell well, it's always at Ross.
It's always at Ross. Even if it does sell well, you can always, Ross is on it. Kohl's, that's a good one for celebrity perfumes too.
My mom loves to buy things for me from Kohl's. Like my mom loved, like, I'm going to go to Kohl's.
Yeah. And you're like,
anything you need for Christmas? And
I'm like, great stuff.
She loves Kohl's Cash.
But yeah,
you're getting, sorry.
No, I was just going to say,
running over you.
Stuff like that is worth it. First class tickets, that seems cool. Other things that rich people have always talked about, like Chateau Marmont, fucking suck. They suck.
Yeah.
Like they're gross and moldy and stupid and bad. And they've told us it's all good. Because we were talking about that on Selma Blair's episode. Like there's a lot of rich people things that are like, oh my God, rich people go here. And you're like, this is nasty. And y'all are lying to us.
Yeah, well, and Instagram and all that crap makes it even worse because then they almost propagate this thing at such a speed where now it's like, no, like look at the neon in the chateau, it's legendary, and then people from all over think that's a place to hit up. Then, and it's Los Angeles culture and celebrity culture is just wild. Like you are getting married. Your fiance Yasser Lester. Sorry, I'm Yasser Lester.
Yasser Lester.
Is an amazing comedian. You guys all know him. If you don't, really go check him out. You're going to do a upcoming podcast with him.
Yeah.
Because I was going to ask how you guys met, but they're like, you're going to share that story on your podcast, which I am very excited to hear. When is that coming out?
When is that coming out? I think in a month. You know, I'll give your listeners a hot exclusive that I haven't even gotten mine. We're doing a very weird book together because I didn't want to do a book where you feel so precious about it. I'd feel bad if he and I went off on tangents and didn't cover the book. So I was giving him the list and he was like, Jenny Jones. And I was like, yeah, let's do Jenny Jones.
Jenny Jones, yes.
And Jenny Jones is also kind of implicit in a murder, and it kind of led to the downfall of her show, and I'm just excited to revisit it.
And the downfall of VH1 reality shows.
Yes.
I don't know if it covers that, but what part of that actually was the downfall of like the Rock of Love, the Flavor of Loves, all of those VH1 reality shows ended because of that murder. Yeah,
exactly. And so I'm excited to dive in. I haven't even cracked the book open, but we've got 2 copies sitting on our nightstands. And
I was like, wouldn't it be great if he's like fully read it 3 times? He's like so prepared. He's like,
no way.
You were talking about mental health and stuff like that. All the work you did was that, and I know this is probably a deeper question that I was curious personally, did it lead you to be able to actually be in a healthy, loving relationship? This is the unfunniest question ever, but is that something that really truly helped?
What a sweet question. It definitely, I will say this, there's no way I could be getting married if I had not gone to as much trauma therapy, because no one would marry me. I would just be.
I love that there's potentially a sea of stories about you out there. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, here's the thing. I think they're not fun. It's just like, wow. So I'll tell you this, and this is going in the book. My ex-boyfriend told me I was too sad. I was too sad of a person, and he couldn't picture being around that type of sadness every day for the rest of his life. And I was like, yeah, man, you think I want to be with it? Like, you out of your mind?
Did he tell you that early on? Wait, did he?
No,
was
we
that
waited
the
till
end, or did
year
he tell you
3.
that?
year 3, man. And
This has been the saddest 3 years of my life.
I know. And the flip side is that I'm also very fun, but I do have all this sadness to deal with that, he got to see because he lives with me. And in the same conversation where this is what it was like to date me a long time ago. And ask Yasser, maybe it's still like this. He was like, you're too sad. And like, there's just a lot of intensity with this. I was like, yes. And in the same fight, he was like, and that bit you do with the baby voice, I'm afraid you'll be doing it on my deathbed. And I said, that bit you love that I do? And he said, I don't love it. And I said, it's been 3 years, motherfucker. You weren't going to say anything. And he was like, I just kind of hoped you'd stop doing it. And so, I was bringing bits, I was bringing tragedy. And
I love that you had a catchphrase in the sitcom of your relationship. You're like, and now I would like that inner monologue you must have had every time you did the voice, well, like the inner monologue.
Here's the thing. When I did the monologue, he would be like, come on now, stop that. But it was part of the bit. So the bit was that I would do it and then he would say no. So, maybe he really was telling me the whole time.
He was begging to stop and you're like, yeah,
this is your role in the bit I do when I do that baby voice. So yeah, I think I 1000% needed to go to therapy. I honestly was a woman on fire. I was on fire and I had no idea. And I could only date people who could be with someone who was literally on fire emotionally. And like, that's a small group, or people who want to date you for a couple months and not longer. So thank God.
Yeah, what a Hinge profile that would have been. I'm on fire.
I'm crazy.
I did want to get, you had brought this up in your stories today, the book Girl Boss. Yeah. Sophia Amoruso. Which was, she had the, a huge rise and a huge fall. And she tweeted the other day, she said, please stop using the term girl boss, because it really did come this cultural phenomenon of girl bossing of, what is your take on are you sad that you are not allowed to use the term girl boss anymore?
Well, yeah. So I wouldn't say sad's the word. I would say I'm enraged she created it. I'm enraged that at its inception, because she created the company, Girl Boss TM, Girl Boss Copyright.
Yeah, it was a Nasty Gal, and
Nasty Gal was her clothing. Girl Boss was her company that she still runs now. And in the inception of becoming a girl boss, in that book, she shits on feminism. The only feminist values she has are fake ones. She's a white feminist to a T, which is just like, I succeed and no one else. She's a horrible capitalist monster who shits on her previous socialist values. I mean, just a monster. She created the term to be a monster. So when she's like, please stop using it, you've corrupted it. It's like, you served it to us rotten. And you
don't tell anybody what to do also. That's just wild. Like what a
yeah, also like, how dare you? You put this word into culture. It's your fault. Now girl boss means something very bad. It meant something very bad to begin with. And you took the gender of female, you took the branding of feminism and you made millions while actively hurting women. And it's like, she makes me so mad. I mean, listen, are you ever called a boy boss? A little boy boss? Boy boss lion?
Please stop doing that voice. I can't. It's just the voice is too much. No.
He loves it.
By the way, I would love like a boy boss, a man boss. Like I'm not ever called a boss of anything. Like I'm a boss of like eating cold cuts. But are you ever going to cover that book, or did you ever?
Oh yeah, so that book is coming on the podcast with Gabby Dunn, who does the podcast Bad with Money. And Gabby was angrier at that book than I was. So that was also I don't like when I don't like the books. It makes me very sad, but that book I'll probably light on fire in an Instagram live.
That actually would be cool. We just had that Margaret Atwood where she was trying the flame-proof copy of Handmaid's Tale. Did you see that she took a flamethrower to it and it was like a fireproof copy?
What if I do that with Girl Boss?
Yeah, but it does burn.
Sorry, girl.
And lastly,
every Girl Boss has a flame retardant book.
I just bought. It's been on my Amazon wish list for 3 years now, and I figured I deserved a $12 treat. And I bought Kris Jenner's autobiography from.
Ooh. How was that?
I have not even. This just came yesterday, and it's
Okay.
like from like 12 years ago. So
I need you to report back and maybe come back on.
Well, that's what I kind of wanted your take on the car. You were talking about them sometimes in your stories, because I just find it like it's one of the things that I almost feel like is an argument for we're in a simulation, because I really truly don't understand. Like, you have the humble roots of reality, and to show what it's become now. Like, I know you love Drag Race, I know you love reality shows, which we didn't really get to talk a lot about. But this is like it's becoming a different animal. Like, it's now affecting geopolitical. I mean, it's getting to a point where I'm like, wait a sec, like the Kardashians came out for Rick Caruso, like they're like doing.
And so did Gwyneth Paltrow, and
they misspelled her name in the ad. Rick Caruso misspelled Gwyneth. But yeah, Katy Perry came out for. I'm like, what is
wrong with you guys? You're actively ruining our city and using your fake liberalism to do it. What a bummer.
I don't even like the Grove. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, you don't. I just feel like the Kardashians now, it's wild. Like, they're in a position where they are getting courted to, endorse candidates, like to choose, because Kim's going to be running at some point for some kind of California.
No way. Oh, no way.
Chelsea,
you think so?
Oh, I will bet you. I'll bet you $1,000 for real.
Okay.
In the next 10 years, she will be running for office. I swear, and I will. You can hold me to this. I'll buy you a fake expensive handbag.
Oh, I want a fake expensive handbag so bad. I'm going through my Rolodex of Kimness. Yeah, I'll take that bet on.
Okay, cool. No, that's exciting, because remember, it doesn't matter anymore your past. Like, we've thrown that out the way. We can be anybody.
Oh, sure.
Kim has totally reinvented herself. Like, she's now actually even made the Ray J sex tape a stamp of feminism. I'm not going to be ever ashamed of this. Like, this season of the Kardashians, which you probably are you watching this season of the Kardashians?
No, I really can't do them.
Yeah, you would get enraged. But I mentioned you watch Drag Race. Is there anything else you're watching right now in terms of reality or shows in general that you just love?
Drag Race All Stars, what a gift. I'm in love with it. Yes, love Drag Race. I loved The Ultimatum on Netflix. And yes, and I put it on. The first episode is mayhem. Like, even to the point where I don't think the editors and cameramen kind of had the hang of it yet. And episode 2, it all turns. Yasser and I have very intense jobs where we have to be at them constantly for hours a day. And we stayed up all night long finishing The Ultimatum. That was one of the best rides of my life. I'm so sad it's over.
And Nick Lachey and Vanessa Lachey Love is Blind. They go over to there.
Yeah, they have some sort of contract with Netflix. Okay, the tea I heard and believe is that they were such bad hosts on Love is Blind that Netflix was like, no more hosting stuff. And that's also why they're not in Love is Blind, because I got some gentle tea that they were supposed to be a huge part of it, and they were just cut out.
It seemed like they had second, like I'm obviously Nick Lachey.
Yeah.
Here's the show, and then it was done.
And sort of the rumor, and you can see it on screen, is that Nick Lachey has no idea what's happening and can't host. And Vanessa, that's her professional job, so she comes on to The Ultimatum, and she's like, "We are hosting this show," and she is sweating bullets, just carrying the weight of this couple. She's divulging personal stuff about their relationship in order to be good host. Meanwhile, you're like, why the fuck are you saying this? Don't say this about your relationship. And then, but it's it's for The Ultimatum. I mean, it's like a
Nick
show
doesn't
within
touch
a show.
Me anymore. Nick does not touch me anymore.
Did you know that after he married Jessica, which was very, very famous relationship, he didn't want to marry me, and we were together 5 years. And but he definitely wanted to be with me. But then I was like, I had to give him an ultimatum because it was time. It was time. And you're like,
I love they went. I have watched the first episode and I was like, but now you sold me on the rest of it, so I will check that.
The first episode's really bad, but after that, what a ride.
Okay, so Ultimatum. Anything else that you are watching right now that you're like, I can't miss this?
Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Oh my God.
Erica and Rinna, love them or hate them.
Oh, so I was a huge, huge Erica fan. And when the stuff came out about, the case, I was really sad, but wanted it to be him. I wanted it to be the husband, and she was taken for a ride. Watch the Hulu documentary where it's like, oh, it's just impossible. She's not a criminal to all of humanity. And then I read her book, and a memoir,
which was ghostwritten by Brian Moylan, by the way, who's a Housewives super fan. Yeah.
Which I don't know him. I think we're in the same world. I think he probably did a great job, but that book made me. Memoirs are supposed to make you love someone, and it is a special type of person who can write an entire book that pushes you away.
Yeah. No, I totally. Yeah.
My guest and I were both Erica super fans, and after reading that book, we're like, she's dead to me. That being said, she's a fighter. Now she's evil, but she's a fighter. She's
not for the right causes. But
not for the right causes.
Yeah.
She's only for herself. I think she maybe did really bad things, but I love seeing a woman fight to stay in it. I really do. And she's
that's obliviousness, though. That's what I was saying earlier. It's obliviousness now. Now it's like she's like
oblivious and strength.
Relent.
Because she's not oblivious. Now enough people have told her, like, fuck you, get out of here. And she's like, no.
I'm never gonna fail. I'm never gonna quit. I'm never gonna do it.
Never gonna quit. And you're like,
by the way,
yeah, I gotta see this.
These are the Tom Girardi underwear that he didn't buy from Erica that I won at auction when the Girardi Keese estate went on sale, and he had bought these from Agent Provocateur, and Erica was like, these aren't even my size. So he bought them around like February 12th. So it obviously was going to be like a Valentine's Day gift. And now they're in my possession, which is just
I gotta say two things. You had that underwear it's like you've been holding it the whole podcast. Like, it was just right there. So
these are now my lucky interview underwear. Like, I can't fit in them, so I just kind of rubbed. no, I haven't for another thing. I had to show somebody.
Yeah, no, but the other thing I'll say is you're over here just finally getting a $12 book off your Amazon wish list, but you've got the red Erica panties.
I'm poor now after the panties. Like, these are it's like okay, so Chelsea, you are amazing. Chelsea Devantez, the podcast, you guys, even though you can support her in so many things, but I especially want to highlight the podcast. It's called Celebrity Book Club. And what we always do when anybody guests on this show, even if you don't like them, which I know you're going to love her, is that you go subscribe and you just hit that 5-star button even before on the reviews, before you even listen to it, because you know it's quality. And if also somebody shares this much of their time for free, mind you, it's worth it. It is worth it. You can find it on Spotify. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, all podcasting outlets, but those two you can leave reviews on. And I think that's a really positive thing we can do to make sure quality content keeps coming our way, and especially content that is based around females. Like, that's, I mean, like this I think is one of the biggest outlets for female voices. And I'm just in such admiration of you and what you do. And thank you so much for having me on your show. And I hope this was okay for you, because
this was
really
incredible. I have such admiration for you. You're just one of the kindest people I have met recently in a business filled with blood bags. And I just love what you do and love your work. And I'm so touched you would have me on. Thank you so much.
Well, me and Chelsea would like to announce we're doing a pilot. No,
yeah. It's called Blood Bag City, Blood Bag Baby City.
I'm so excited for you guys to hear this. So hopefully you loved it. I know you will. And go support the podcast. Bye.
Bye.